This is the Unleash Your Inner Artist palette, so I think it's only fitting that I like go full on like a big ass makeup look today because I'm gonna unleash my inner artist. Bitch. Hey guys, so I'm in my full makeup right now, and that is because I filmed the beginning of this video initially, and then as I was going on and using the palette, I was having a little bit of issues here and there, and I stopped, watched a few videos, I was reading about things, and I feel like I got more accurate information to give you. So instead of starting this video off barefaced, I'm starting this video off with the finished look, because even though this semi-spoils the ending for you, I feel like it's better for me to give you accurate information than it is for me to start the video off with no spoilers. And I'm gonna get into using this. You guys will see me go through the products in a few minutes, but I want to go through a few specifics about this palette before I get started. Today I am gonna be using the Morphe and James Charles eyeshadow palette. It is the Unleash Your Inner Artist palette. This is what it looks like here. It is absolutely stunning. And before I get into this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about some things about the palette. I'm going to give you guys some information and also talk about a little bit of drama that is surrounding this palette, because I know you're surprised, but the beauty community sometimes has drama in it. I know. It's never happened before. So James Charles, if you do not know who he is a beauty influencer with 10+ million YouTube followers and 10+ million Instagram followers. He is a powerhouse when it comes to beauty, and his influence is huge. I've known James for a few years now. We met at IMATS back in 2016, I believe. I could just tell from talking to James that weekend and hanging out with him, he knew he was going to succeed in this industry, and boy was he right. I remember in that moment he had 16,000 YouTube subscribers and less than 100,000 followers on Instagram, and now look at him. I mean, it is truly a testament. He is an incredible businessman, and I mean, it's shocking to see somebody so young be so incredible at business, and I really love James. He's always been a great guy to me, but that all aside, I'm going to review this eyeshadow palette as if I don't know him personally, as if he's not one of my buddies, and if I am just going to give you guys information. I know it's tough when somebody knows somebody personally to give a full, honest, unbiased review, and a lot of people don't believe it today, because I'm going to give you guys all the information that you need as far as the controversy goes with this palette so far, and my review, which you'll see in a few minutes, and see how I feel about the eyeshadows. Before we get into this video any further, make sure you subscribe if you have not yet. I upload new videos as often as I can, but I try for every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You guys can also hit like on this video if you're excited to see my review, if you're excited to see how I do this makeup look and hear my thoughts, and let's get into it. The first bit of controversy that I saw when the eyeshadow palette first was teased or released was James's video came out and he did swatches of the eyeshadow palette. People had come out saying that he was faking the swatches because it looks like some of the shadows had already been pre-swatched. Now, he came out on his Instagram stories and said, look, the only reason those were pre-swatched was not because I was trying to swindle you or lie to you, but basically that I talked too fast and I fucked up a couple of things that I was saying in the speaking portion, and I had to refilm and re-say those parts, so the eyeshadow was already pre-swatched. I'm gonna give James the full benefit of the doubt because I'm a YouTuber and I know how many times I have to retake the same thing. If you guys have seen any of my other videos and have watched any of the bloopers portions, you know sometimes I have to say things like 17 times to get it right. He also went on his Instagram stories and live swatched all of the eyeshadows so you guys could see them straight out. It seemed to me like they swatched fine. I did swatch a few of them when I was actually talking earlier when I did the intro to the video before, and they swatched just fine. Everything was great. There was no issues. I didn't have any patchiness. And then we move on to, I believe it was yesterday. It could have been the day before, but I'm not certain. A gal on Twitter, she made a little video ranting about the pink shade in here, which is the shade Skip. It is here on the bottom, and she had used this all over her eyes and she was experiencing some severe staining and what she said was hives. She went on a little rant on Twitter saying that, you know, she's just warning people. She was a little aggressive, but that's kind of her style. If you watch her on Twitter, you can see that her name is Cody Rants. So I think Cody likes to rant. She did, and it received some people agreeing with her and a lot of backlash as well. James did respond to it saying that, you know, pink eyeshadows stain red and pink, and the dyes that are used in there, they stain. Marlena from Makeup Geek said that pinks and reds and things of that nature do stain, but you need to just use an oil-based makeup remover or an oil in general. It'll come off, no problems. Other people on there were saying, like, why the fuck is this staining? Why are there problems? Why is this not being addressed correctly? And it was a whole shitstorm. I'm going to talk about what I know and in the somewhat research that I've done and listen to other people as well, kind of what I know about eyeshadows and pressed pigments, because eyeshadows and pressed pigments are not the same thing, apparently, according to the FDA. So I've done some research of myself. I've talked about this in the past. This is things I have mentioned on my YouTube channel before. I specifically remember when I tried the ColourPop Hello, or it was like some ColourPop palette, and there were 3 or 4 shades in that palette that were deemed not for use in the immediate eye area, and I was just so shocked at why an eyeshadow palette would have eyeshadows that were not available for use in the immediate eye area. I've also seen Jen Loves Reviews make videos on this before. Jen is an incredible researcher when it comes to really important topics, especially regarding ingredients and the way that things are formulated. She is not a cosmetic chemist by any means, but she does really great research. She has great sources, and I'm going to link Jen's videos that I have watched down below where she discusses the issues. I specifically remember it around the Manny MUA Life's a Drag palette. From what I understand, and I may be a little bit incorrect here, but I think I'm pretty on the money. When an eyeshadow is formulated with certain red dyes, from what I understand, when those dyes are used specifically in pinks and reds and shades like that, they have to be considered pressed pigments, not eyeshadows, because according to the FDA, they're not approved to be used in the immediate eye area because of the staining factor. So pinks and reds generally can cause staining on your skin. I would recommend watching Jen's video because she goes into far more depth and detail. I have not watched it recently, but I did watch it back when she first did it, and if I am remembering correctly, it is against the law to call pressed pigments that contain those dyes that are not safe in the immediate eye area eyeshadows. You're not allowed to use them on the eyes according to the FDA, not because they will burn your eyes or not because they will hurt you or make you blind or anything, but because they cause staining, and they consider staining to be dyeing your skin, because essentially it is that pigment dyeing your skin, even if it does come off. So at least one of these, which is the shade Skip that I showed you, that hot pink shade, I believe does contain some of those dyes. It is a pressed pigment and they can stain the skin. If you have sensitive skin around your eyes, or even if you don't, it may stain. I know that the Makeup Forever Flash palette, the pink shade that's in there, stains my skin horrifically bad, and I've seen other people mention that it does as well. It's bad. I mean, it is like, I used it on a section of my face and my face was stained that way for like a few days afterward. I don't necessarily notice that a ton of other pink and red shades do it, but a lot of brands use carmine, which is a crushed up beetle. And so in the interest of brands trying to stay vegan with their eyeshadow formulas, they don't use carmine, and then they use red dyes, which again stain the skin. So those shades cannot be considered eye safe or for use in the immediate eye area because they contain those red dyes. A lot of the matte shades in this palette, from what James has said, are pressed pigments. You guys will see me using those in a few minutes. And from what James has said in his video, which I watched initially, it's been a couple of weeks, and then I tried this out and I had forgotten some of the information. So you guys will see me struggle with some of these shades in a few minutes. There are pressed pigment formulas in here. So when you press a pigment and it contains a lot higher level of that pigment so that the shades are really vibrant, they are more difficult to work with. You'll see me mention that a few times in this video and in the wrap up at the end. So I just wanted to give you guys that information because there is a lot of drama. Twitter. It's kind of the way it is. Without giving you incorrect information or coming off like I don't know what I'm talking about, which a lot of the times I'm just repeating information that I've heard from what I've either read online in things or from what I have watched in other people's YouTube videos, I am going to link Jen's video, again, like I said, in the description of this video so you guys can watch her. She is so much more informational and concise than I am. She was a teacher and she is good at teaching. If you're just a makeup enthusiast and you're not super into the whole world of YouTube and knowing all the ins and outs of ingredients and things like that, you may not know a lot of this stuff. So I think it is important to notate, just so that there's no confusion and nobody shitting all over James and Morphe. I think it would behoove them to give this information in a really like obvious way, like, hey, these are the shades that may cause staining, these are the ones that are pigments. I think just being really open and honest about that stuff removes all of the questions and confusion surrounding this. The palette is 39 shades, $39, and the brush set is $149, which I think is really expensive. However, there are a ton of brushes in there. It says it's a $218 value and you get the price reduced because you buy the bundle. These are sold on Morphe's website as well as Morphe standalone stores. So if you have one of those near you, you can run out and see if they carry it. I also do believe that it is sold at Ulta. I believe currently this stuff is sold out, but I'm sure it'll be returning very soon. All right, guys, well, I'm gonna jump into the eyeshadow portion of this video where you guys can see me applying everything, and at the end, hear my final thought, and let's go. From what I have seen, James has said that it's best recommended to use with an eyeshadow primer like specifically MAC paint pots. I don't have any MAC paint pots. The ones that I had dried out. I'm sure that a regular concealer will work just fine. For any makeup look that I do, I always prime my eyelids with the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. I do not set the concealer whatsoever, and then I go in and blend my shades, which is what I'm gonna do today. I know that what I saw was James recommend to use the MAC paint pot. My thing is, I don't love the idea that you have to buy something different that's not sold with the palette in order to use the palette to its full potential. The majority of people that are buying this are likely not going to go out and buy a paint pot. If you want to use your regular eyeshadow primer, that's what I'm going to do today, and I will see how it performs on top of that. I trust James though. If he says it's the best way to do it, probably the best way to do it, and I'm probably going to regret not using it. This is the Unleash Your Inner Artist palette, so I think it's only fitting that I like go full on like a big ass makeup look today because I'm going to unleash my inner artist. Beach. So this is the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. I'm just going to tap it on so that it stays nice and opaque. This is the shade Fair 02, so it's nice and light. I've never had an eyeshadow that can't work on top of this. I generally do not ever set this concealer. I just tap it on as best I can, keep it nice and opaque, and then let it kind of sit for a few minutes, so it's not completely tacky, but it's also not powdered at all. So I'm gonna actually try some of James's brushes today from the set. This is the brush set here. It says Morphe and James Charles on it. You clip it open it up, and it is full of brushes. I've only ever used Morphe brushes maybe like twice in my, no, I've used them a few times. I went to IMATS, actually it was IMATS 2016. It was where I met James. I bought some Morphe brushes. That was the same time I called Jaclyn Hill a bitch. Watch this if you don't know what I'm talking about. I bought some Morphe brushes that day, but that's the only time I've ever used them. The other ones I have, I don't hate, but I don't ever reach for. So that kind of leads me to, I don't know if I love them or not. These look nice though. These look like a good shape for blending. If this brush is high quality, which it feels very soft upon first use, I love the shape of this brush. This is the M506. I think I'm gonna start off and go in with this shade up here. This is the shade Rusted, and I'm gonna take that on the little Morphe M506 brush, and I'm going to run that throughout my crease. I'm going to pack it on because I think that is the way, from what I understand, to get these shadows to be like the best. And then I'm gonna go in with the Morphe M441 and just sort of buff the edges out a little bit. These brushes are really soft so far. So far, I'm really liking the way that this is performing. And the ColourPop seems to be fine that it's blending on top of initially. Done. I always do my eyes first so that if I make any mistakes, I can just whisk it away at the end. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And I'm gonna go in with 518 right here. I'm sort of packing that around the edges of this. And I intend to blend this out with like a fluffy blending brush. This is the Makeup Addiction Small Tapered Blender. And I'm gonna use just this brush on this side to see if it kind of blends better without tapping it on first. Yeah, if you don't pack it on first, the color's a lot more subtle. So you probably should listen to James when he says to pack it on first. Yeah, look at the difference. Look at the difference there. If you hadn't watched the video first and you just went in straight with this, with the way you normally do eyeshadows, you might be like, what the fuck? Because, you know, sometimes those videos really do teach you a lot about how to properly use the products. And I'm gonna dip into this shade here, which is B. I'm gonna use that same brush that I've been using to pack on the color. Kind of set it down out here. Then I'm gonna take my Makeup Addiction brush, buff out the edges. I feel like the blend on that looks really nice. The colors are blending together really nicely. I don't feel like there's rough edges or anything like that, so. I'm gonna dip into these two shades sort of mixed. This is You're Kidding. All right, so I took that shade there because I'm gonna do the front of my eye kind of cut out. So I'm gonna use my favorite cut crease brush for this. This is the Bodyography Pro Flat Shader Brush. Just gonna put some of that ColourPop No Filter Concealer on the back of my hand and go right in, baby. I'm not struggling at all with blending it on top of this. So maybe it blends so much better on top of a paint pot instead of this, but I'm getting beautiful pigmentation with just my ColourPop, so. So I'm gonna go in with the shade Brother and Artistry. I think I wanna go in with this shade in the front and then blending into this one here. So I think I'm gonna dip into Brother with the F70 concealer brush from Sigma. I'm actually gonna switch my brush over to the Smith Cosmetics 302 brush. A matte shade tapped over the concealer looks a bit patchy. I don't think that that is the shadow's fault more than it is the application technique in which I'm using. So let's try some of this shade at the bottom here, this blue. So I feel like that Brother shade, which is matte, tapped over the wet concealer, did start to get a little bit patchy, as you can see. So I'm tapping over the bottom shimmer shade, which is, I really hate that. I hate this. So I'm tapping over the shade Acapella, and I think that's working, but you can still see a bit of the patchiness underneath, but it's not gonna look bad because I'm also gonna do like a wing that I cut out and then do color. So I'll show you guys what I mean. Let's see if it happens on this eye too, but when you tap the matte over the concealer, I think this is very common though. Like it's just grabbing in places where it's wetter. I don't think it's a testament to a bad shadow by any means. Now I'm gonna dip into this one again. I'll try my finger first, and then I'll try wet. That's what it looks like on my finger. Let's try it wet now. I'm gonna spray my brush with a little bit of Fix Plus from MAC. Friggin' love the way Fix Plus smells. Maybe I should have rewatched the video. This seems to me like a shade that needs to go over a black base, sort of melting that into the blue shade there so it's not like harsh edged. That shade, and I'm assuming it's because it's meant to be used over a black base, but when I'm trying to build that up, there is no building it up really. So I think to deepen the outer corner, I'm gonna use this shade here. This one seems to be really grabbing. I really should have watched the instructional video again. I'm struggling. Tap out the edges. You see it's like grabbing along the edges. That looks pretty freaking bad. Let me watch James's video right now and see if I'm like just using this wrong.
Next we have this deep purple plum shade right here, and this one is called Escape. You guys know I love escape rooms. There's literally nothing in the entire world that makes me happier than solving an escape room. I don't know why. I just love using my brain and strategizing and problem solving. It is so much fun, and it was also so much fun creating this purple as well. Just like Brother, this is one of the little bit more tricky shades to work with. You do have to definitely pack it on because it is a pressed pigment, but
okay,
when you do it right, look how beautiful that color is.
Just like Brother, you do have to pack this on. Brother, it looks like a pack on shade as well. So I'm going to take a different brush and I'm going to dip into that, and I'm really going to pack it on instead of blending it out the way that I was before, because I do feel like with this shade, as James suggested in his video, that when blended out, of course it blends into these shades fine, but it starts to sort of pick up packing it on versus blending it. So now I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to blend over the edges. So I would have to completely agree with James. This is one of the more finicky shades to work with. It does not want to be blended out at all. It's definitely a packing shade, which means once you pack it on, try not to disturb it because it can get patchy because it is a pressed pigment. So I'm going to take a little bit more of that purple shade and just sort of try to tap it over the edge so that it's not like super harsh, but I think that's as good as I'm gonna get it. Yeah, look, as soon as you don't pack it on, if I go over it with anything else, that's a bit of a letdown. Every other shade that I've used I really like. I just do completely agree that both Brother and this shade are finicky to work with. So I think in the interest of saving this look, I'm going to go into this black shade here and just sort of try to deepen up the outer corner so that you can't see the patchiness that I just had. That is helping quite a bit to remove the patchiness. This shade seems to blend well, nice and pigmented. And that's helping deepen that outer corner. I'm gonna do this eye off camera and I will be right back. I'm gonna clean up my fallout real quick and then we're gonna move on to the wing liner portion of this video. Now I'm going to go in with my Bodyography Pro flat shader brush, the same brush that I used to cut my crease, and I'm going to use some concealer and I'm going to cut out a wing. Maybe like a white wing. I think that could look kind of neat. And this is the shade from the palette. That one is Flashback. I'm gonna toss a pair of lashes on real quick and I will be right back and we are going to move on to the rest of the face. I'll probably come back with like my foundation and everything done as well because that's irrelevant to this makeup tutorial. So I'm gonna finish off that, pop some lashes on, do my face, and I will be right back. I think for that I am going to take a lot of these same colors and just really bring them down and smoke them out quite a lot. I think I'm gonna use this Morphe brush for it, and this is the M441. And I'm gonna dip into this orange shade and this yellow shade here, and I'm going to run those down underneath my eyes. So kind of bring this up to meet with that shade. I love bringing my eyeshadows down really, really low. I'm gonna take a little bit of that orange shade and bring it right up to the top, and a bit of that red shade. I love that. I love the way that that looks. So I'm gonna go with two different eyeliners. I'm gonna take both of these. This is the Blue Anyway and Versatile Violet from Makeup Forever. And I'm going to do them in the same way that I did the lid color. And this is the finished look. I'm gonna give you guys my final thoughts on everything right now. So what do I think about the Morphe and James Charles palette? Well, I think the color story is absolutely stunning. I don't think it could have been any better. I think that it gives you a huge range of different looks that you can create with it. I mean, really anything you can think of, you can create with the Unleash Your Inner Artist palette. I think it's a really beautiful palette. I do think though, I would highly suggest watching James's video on this before you dive in, because if you do not, or pay super close attention to what shades you need to be a little more mindful with, then I think you may struggle. I have been doing makeup for 5 years now. 6 years maybe. And I will admit that there are some shades in this palette, like James said, that I struggled with massively. I think that 2 of those being Brother and Escape, like James said, I did struggle with. Escape especially, I feel like performed very patchy. Even while packing it on, it's not a shade I would reach for again. While I think the color is so stunning, I mixed a little bit of another shade with the black to create the depth on the outer corner, which I feel like worked just fine. And some positives, I think that the red and yellow shades that I worked with today blended exceptionally well. I didn't have any issues with them. I completely agree in that because they are a pressed pigment, you really have to pack them on and then blend them out. Packing them on gives you that super vibrant color that you can see here. I don't think that the shade Brother is a negative shade in any way. It's just that in the way I used it, where I patted it over a concealer, I just don't think that that was the best. Although you are meant to pat this shadow on, I think that it just clung in certain spots and caused me a little bit of patchiness. As far as the shimmer shades go, I think they're beautiful. With that purple shade, which was Artistry, I believe that one is called. This one here, it is an absolutely stunning shade, but I do believe it was meant to go over a black base. If I am correct in remembering James's video, I think that is the case.
Now, obviously it does swatch very, very beautifully, but we actually created the shade in mind for layering. So whether it be over a black or a dark purple or even like a white shade, we created this color to really just make it pop and sparkle with blues and purples over top of a base for maximum payoff.
And from using it today, it is an absolutely gorgeous shade. Again, I watched this video like 2 weeks ago, so he may mention that in the video, which I think he does, but I do think that's more of a topper than it is a full pigment shadow. It is absolutely stunning when I used it today. If you hadn't watched James's video and you didn't know what to expect, you may be a little like, oh, what the heck? I think that these shades all look really pretty together. I love the eye look I created. It's really intense, I'm well aware, but I really like it. I think that I definitely will reach for this palette again, especially if I'm doing a colorful look. If I'm doing something avant-garde, I would 100% reach for this palette again. I struggle to find palettes that contain everything that you need to create a really bright and vibrant look alongside of other colors, such as the middle shades in here, which would be really good for blending out like a very neutral, warm toned look. You've got all these large shades here, but you can also kind of supplement it in with some of these shades. And then obviously you have your rainbow spectrum there on the bottom. But I think that this is a really well-rounded palette. Now, some things that I think you should note going into this, being that they are pressed pigment shadow, you really have to work with a lot of these matte shades, which if you are a beginner, you may just be like frustrated almost a bit. But I do believe because they are pressed and they are a full pigment shadow, the color is unbelievably vibrant compared to having to build up a lot of other shadows. Whereas these, you pat it on, you blend it out, and you are left with like a sunset on your eyes. So I agree with the fact that these shades are more pigmented, but the more pigmented a shadow, the more difficult to work with. On the same token, I think that I was only able to try like 6 or 7 of the shades out of this palette, and there's still so many more to use. So with what I've tried today, would I recommend this eyeshadow palette? For $39 and what I have seen with it, I would recommend it. I would just go into it knowing that it's a little more difficult to use than your average, less pigmented eyeshadow. I know this is a lot of information in this video, but I always want to give you guys my true and honest review. I think that the shades in here are absolutely stunning, and I think that the eye look I created is incredibly vibrant. I mean, every time I keep looking at it, I'm like, oh my god, these shades are absolutely stunning. I think James did a beautiful job picking this color specifically for this palette. It's a give and a take. It's one of those things where you can make a shadow easier to work with, but you're going to reduce the brightness of it, or you can make a shadow incredibly vivid and bright. You're just going to make it a little more finicky to work with, and I don't think it was a bad choice by any means. I just think it's something to note. As far as the brushes go, I think that the ones that I used today were nice. I love my brushes that I always use, ones that you guys, if you are a subscriber of mine, know that I use all the time. But I think if you don't have brushes, you're not gonna hate these. Like when I use them, I was surprised by the quality. They're very, very soft, but I don't know how the longevity is on them, so I can't attest to that, but I can tell you that from what I used today, I think that they work just fine. And if you are looking for a full brush kit, this contains a lot of brushes. All right, you guys, well, I hope that was somewhat helpful for you. I'm gonna leave links for everything in the description of this video. If you guys are interested in checking out anything, I will leave links down below. Congratulations, James. I think that this is a really, really beautiful collection and you should be so proud of yourself. I think that this palette screams James Charles to me, and I love a good colorful eyeshadow. You guys know this. All right, well, I thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you have not yet, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you did like this video, and I will see you guys at my next video. Bye! Today I'm going to be trying out the James Charles and Morphe Brushes palette. Today I'm going to be using out... Son of a bitch. So, alright, and now I'm going to dip into... These fucking cars, dude. Do I live on a freaking racetrack? Why are people fucking honking? Get out of here! Where is my brush, 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 brush? Where is my brush? I just used it. I found it. Time for a new battery. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in with my Bodyography